Welcome to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I am Jason Fitz. We got a ton to get to today, and we start right off the gates with more love or hate for the New York Knicks. Now, the Knicks are the defending NBA champions. We all know that. But according to Vegas, I'm not sure that Vegas loves them as much as everybody else does. So we start today with one of our favorite games we love to play on this show. You sure about that? And this is where we take a look at some different topics, and we go full Tim Robinson on it. One more time, Tim. Give it to me one more time.
You sure about that?
Oh, that's amazing. All right, so let's start right off the gates with that, Caroline. The Knicks have the fourth best odds. That's right, the fourth best odds to repeat as NBA champions. So I ask you, you sure about that?
You sure about that?
No, Tim Robinson, I'm not sure about that. And let me state for the record, I am not one of those people that believes that just because you won a championship the year prior, that you should be considered the favorite or should be the betting favorite to win next season. Sports just don't work that way. You know, we had this conversation. Indiana football has like the third best odds in the Big Ten to win the conference and to win a national championship. I'm like, yeah, because you lost your starting quarterback. You lost so much production on both sides of the football. So that makes sense. So I'm not somebody that believes that you should just de facto be the betting favorite just because you won one. But I guess I'm missing something here. That we all collectively as a basketball society just can't buy into what the Knicks are selling us, what they have sold us for the last, 2 months, month and some change on the path to a championship. Throw away a Knicks uniform. Insert, let's just say, an Oklahoma City Thunder uniform. Let's say if OKC was beating opponents by an average of 15 points per game in the postseason. If OKC had a plus 283 point differential in the entire postseason, the highest point differential in NBA postseason history. Second most was the Golden State Warriors in 2017 at plus 230. So it's the most in history, and it ain't even close. If the Oklahoma City Thunder only lost 3 games in the entirety of the postseason and only one after they figured their stuff out against the Atlanta Hawks, if it was the Oklahoma City Thunder that beat Victor Wembanyama, 7'5" French alien face of the league, in 5 games after they beat the reigning champions, we'd be talking about OKC as a dynasty. We'd be talking about OKC, maybe not even losing a game next season, because that's how we talked about OKC this past year. The Knicks did all of those things. The Knicks had a plus 283 point differential. The Knicks were beating teams by an average of 15 points per game. It was the Knicks that beat the Spurs in 5. It was the Knicks that only lost 3 games in the postseason. Yet for some reason, we just feel like what they did is not replicable. Yet for some reason, we think it was just kind of lucky chance. The Knicks have one of the most clutch players that we have ever seen in the history of the NBA. And for some reason, we just kind of think, yeah, that was great and all, but what about OKC? What about San Antonio? What about Boston? If it wasn't the Knicks, I feel like we'd be giving this team more credit for what they did. But for some reason, since it is New York, we just kind of don't give them proper credit for it. I'm not here for it.
And look, I think there's a fine line on some of this. I don't know what to do with the Patriots in the NFL who go to the Super Bowl last year, but I'm not sure that really translates to anything comparable this year. I don't know what to do with magical runs. I'm the first to admit that. I also think, though, at some point, this just speaks to the disrespect that Vegas has had for the Knicks for a long time. Again, the Knicks were the underdog in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Knicks were the underdogs in the NBA Finals. And look at what they did through the course of both of those series. Vegas couldn't have been more wrong about the New York Knicks. And maybe that continues. I'm not sure what it's going to take for this Knicks team to get the benefit of the doubt that, frankly, they've earned. I mean, proof of concept exists. If you look at their upcoming free agent class, the biggest name on their roster right now that they've got to make a decision on and figure out is Mitchell Robinson. He's a key piece, yes, but I don't think there's any other team in the NBA that's sitting down today having a boardroom meeting saying, you know what, the NBA Finals will either be won or lost based on our ability to acquire ... Mitchell Robinson. So like, I'm not going to sit here and turn around with the Knicks and say, oh man, I'm out on, they don't got no Robinson next year. No chance. That is not a statement anyone is going to utter. And we don't even know if they can figure out a way to keep him in the building. So to me, when you've got this team that was so inconsistent the regular season, but found that consistency in the playoffs, it is fair to say, I don't know what to make of that playoff run when it comes to how it sort of extrapolates, using a big word, into next year. But I do think there has to be some credit because that credit has been earned. It's not just that they won, to your point, it's how they won consistently every single night in every single series. How many people do you have to just kick the snot out of before people recalibrate their expectation? I think the Knicks deserve recalibration, and your point's a great one. If it were other brands, we would be talking dynasty. I'm not sure I'm willing to go there. I'm also not sure I'm willing to go where Victor Wembanyama wants me to go. He likes his odds to be back in the finals. In his post-game press conference, this is his quote: there's probably 100 games before we get back in the finals. He's basically putting them right back in the finals. So I ask you, Caroline, Wemby saying he'll be back in the NBA finals next June. You sure about that?
You sure about that?
No, Victor, I'm not. Like 100 games looking at my watch, that would mean next season. No, look, can Victor Wembanyama get back? Will I put my money on Victor Wembanyama getting back to an NBA Finals in his career? Heck yeah. Like, I will take that bet. Absolutely. I keep hearing these people saying, okay, well, James Harden never got back. Russell Westbrook never got back. Yeah, but this is Victor Wembanyama, okay? There's a lot of players who have lost a lot of NBA finals, who have also gotten back to the NBA finals and either won one or multiple championships. Victor Wembanyama has rewritten the way that we kind of look at the calculus of the NBA. So yes, I do believe that Victor Wembanyama, this young core in San Antonio, will get back, and their average age is like 14. So yes, I do think that they will get back to an NBA finals. I do think that Victor Wembanyama will win a championship at some point in his career, but 100 games, miss me on that. It's not that easy. It feels like it was maybe that easy because they got there this season. They've completely broken the usual timeline of a young team. Normally, young teams have to get smacked in the mouth and sent back down to earth before they get to an NBA Finals. The Spurs didn't. But you have to get back through OKC. You have to get back through Denver. You have to get back through Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's a really mucky and tough West. So next season, not quite sure about that. At some point in his career, absolutely, I'll take that bet.
I mean, sure. There's no doubt in my mind that we believe Victor Wembanyama will be back in this situation soon. I do think the OKC portion of this can't be overstated because how many of us at the end of the last championship for OKC said, oh, this is the beginning of a dynasty? On this show, we talked about whether or not OKC could even try and put up a historic season this year. And OKC was absolutely ravaged by injuries all season long. So what I love to do in the offseason is try and apply universal benefit of the doubt. If I'm going to presume that San Antonio stays healthy next season, and I'm going to presume that San Antonio grows up a lot in the offseason, that they learn from this and that they get better because of it. Well, my question is, if I apply that same benefit of the doubt that I'm suddenly giving out in massive waves, don't I have to presume that OKC is going to be healthy next season then? Don't I have to presume that OKC also, it's not like they're Meemaw and Pawpaw in this game. Like OKC is not an old team that's already finished developing in every possible way. So to your point, I don't think that I've got a 14-year-old middle school team that's figuring life out versus the old folks here. OKC's also going to develop more. OKC's also going to get better. SGA's also going to keep developing his game. OKC's also going to figure out the injury bug you would hope at some point. San Antonio went through this entire series, this entire playoff run, and had a huge opportunity because they were ahead of schedule. But the hardest part about the phrase ahead of schedule to me is that it just presumes that there really is, Caroline, a schedule. There isn't. Like everybody in this, like, am I going to presume that Anthony Edwards doesn't keep getting better and that he's just never going to be healthy the rest of his career? Minnesota can't do anything around him. Am I going to presume that Denver's just left for dead with one of the best players and one of the best combos and all of this? So like this conversation, this anoints San Antonio as an annual returner to the NBA Finals, provides a lot of benefit of the doubt for San Antonio and not much for everybody else. So I'm not willing to do that in this process. Also, I should point out again, part of the reason we were all scared of OKC 3 months ago is the draft equity they have. They're not old, and they're going to get younger in this process. So I'm not willing to count out OKC in any way, shape, or form. How about this one? Speaking of the draft, Darryn Peterson out here acting like he is a surefire, can't miss number 1 pick. Okay, he's out here making the world know. All right, just a week away from the NBA draft. According to reports, Darryn Peterson has only visited the Washington Wizards, who own the number 1 overall pick. He won't grant anyone else any meetings, that according to Shams and Jeremy Woo. So I asked Darryn Peterson, acting like he's the surefire number 1 pick. You sure about that?
You sure about that?
There's a lot of things I'm not sure about today because I am not sure about that. I hate that look. I think that is horrific PR for Darryn Peterson. Frankly, somebody who could probably use some goodwill and some good PR on his side. Let's not forget, if you go back to the college basketball season, which feels like 17 years ago now, Darryn Peterson would take himself off the court. Darryn Peterson would go ahead and just walk back into the locker room after he had like a 20-point first half. Darryn Peterson's commitment to winning was in question this past season at Kansas. So his attitude, his love of the game was already a question mark, at least in my mind. And I think in the minds of a lot of basketball people out there. Was he really giving 100% effort to Kansas basketball? So fast forward to now, and he's saying, no, I'm only going to visit the team with the number 1 overall pick. I think that's a really bad look. You're making a lot of assumptions. Maybe there's something that he and his team know behind the scenes and they feel comfortable doing that. But I think just for, just PR purposes, take more of the visits. You never know what could happen on draft night, especially in this draft. Because I think there's very much so a real possibility where AJ DeBonsa goes number 1 overall. Let's not forget, Cam Boozer is also in this draft. This is a stacked draft with a lot of really talented players at the top. Like the top 5, I think, could go in any certain order. So for Darryn Peterson, period, to do that, I think is awfully presumptuous, but especially in a draft as loaded as this one.
Sorry, I had to cough just as you finished your thought.
That was terrible
Here's the,
timing. I am so sorry.
Well, yeah,
about
I mean,
that.
we tried so hard to relay that. If I'm Washington, I want him to take visits because we never know if Washington even wants to hold this number 1 pick. Maybe they want to move down to 2. Maybe they want to move down to 3. Maybe Darryn Peterson taking visits creates some massive market for him, right? And the other side of this is, let me, the old man in the room, take everybody all the way back to the NBA draft of 2025 and what a vintage it was when Ace Bailey refused to visit Utah and was still drafted by Utah at 5 overall. Teams don't give a damn what you want, and they're never going to give a damn what you want. It's the draft. I understand free market conversation that happens all the time within tanking. Free market conversation happens all the time within the NBA. But in every major sport, one thing is, and they all have in common, they all have a draft, and you are drafted where you are drafted. You may not like it, but you have no choice for it. So at the end of the day, Darryn Peterson not taking any other visits isn't going to prevent him from being drafted somewhere else. Darryn Peterson not taking any other visits is very possibly could push down the overall value of the number 1 overall pick should Washington want to trade it. And Darryn Peterson not taking any other visits doesn't actually change anything about the future of where Darryn Peterson is going to end up. So all it does is make him look difficult in the process. And maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he's just trying to make that statement. I just don't think the statement lands. And at the end of the day, it doesn't change his final destiny in any way, shape, or form. So it's a bunch of yelling about nothing because, again, Ace Bailey is a living, eating, breathing example and a reminder that just a couple of years ago in the draft, you can sit there and say, I refuse to be drafted. 2025, my God, a year ago in the draft, Ace Bailey said, no, you can't do this. And Utah did it anyway. So congratulations, Darryn Peterson. You make the process more difficult, but you haven't actually changed your destiny. One person's destiny yesterday did change in college athletics. Coming up, the latest and final development in Brandon Sorsby. We'll tell you about it next.
Do you have any advice that you could give to Christian Pulisic about how to handle this World Cup?
I think if he can find a zone where he is like that kid again, that is on the field with his buddies, and these are his buddies, this national team, these guys are close, and just understand not overthink the opportunity and the pressure and the home World Cup, but be like, what a privilege it is for us to be on this field right now representing the United States.
He's gotta lock it in. Right here, under 8, down by 3. It's one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league. Fired, caught, open space in front. Karan Ashley still on his feet inside the 5, touchdown! This is again why we love the indoor football league.
I was honestly like going through the free agency process for the first time, kind of like, taking it how it came to me. Had, different teams calling me up, and I felt like the Bills were the best team to help me reach my goal of winning the Super Bowl. They've been so close in the past, and as an organization, they want to get over that hump. They want to, hold up that Lombardi trophy, and that's something I wanted to do. So our goals and our visions align with that, and, I felt like it was the best spot for me.
We'll see how things go. And this is the kickoff here by Kevin Macias, who was a Sugar Skull until 2 weeks ago. And the return up to the races, Aaron Jackson. Touchdown, Sugar Skulls returning the opening kickoff.
This is outstanding. And you know what's funny? So I was downstairs, and Mr. Jackson came up to me. He was like, hey, man, I appreciate you saying good things about me. I was like, look, if you make plays, I'm going to say good things. So if you want me to keep saying great things about you, keep making plays.
In the movies, we always hear it's the final chapter, especially in bad horror movies, but that only means there's going to be more. However, we may have finally gotten the final chapter, much like a horror movie, for Texas Tech transfer quarterback Brendan Sorsby. He is applying to enter the NFL Supplemental Draft, widely regarded as a top-round talent. As you see Ross Dellinger point out here, and has already become a controversial take, he could join a quarterback-needy team ahead of the NFL season. This absolutely ends the saga of what Texas Tech is going to do with their quarterback this season. In Caroline, it took a long time. You know me well enough as a person. I don't like when simple things become complicated. This was always simple. He broke the written rules. Like the rules or not, he broke the rules. Shouldn't have been allowed to play. Everybody started getting legal action going everywhere. But at the end of the day, I believe they got it right. Brandon Sorsby should not play. He will not play. And finally, the player, the team, and college football can try and move on.
Well, welcome to college football, where simple things are complicated and complicated things just go to court. Like, it's a beautiful and sticky little mess that sport is. This is, I think, probably the worst thing for Brendan Sorsby's development, the worst thing for Brendan Sorsby's career, and probably the worst thing for Brendan Sorsby's money and his base cash. But this is the right thing for everybody else involved, not named Texas Tech. This is the worst possible scenario for Texas Tech season this year. They made the college football playoff last year. They wanted to build upon that. That's why they committed $4 to $6 reportedly $1 million to Brendan Sorsby in the transfer portal this season. So this is a lose for Brendan Sorsby. I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he gets selected in the supplemental draft, or he gets signed as a UDFA and he has a very long and very successful career. But this is a win for the NCAA to actually look like they have at least some semblance of power over college football, even though they actually don't. At least there's this fugazi idea that they might, even though the NCAA doesn't. It's really the Big 12 that does. This is a win for the Big 12 because we've heard attorneys general push back against this. We have heard athletic directors push back against this. So now the Big 12 doesn't have to deal with a sticky situation that is Texas Tech's quarterback clearly breaking the rules. This is a win for college football as a whole, because this would set, if Brendan Sorsby was able to play this season and did play this season, this would set a very weird and icky and yucky sentiment that if you break a rule, it is as simple as take it to court and you can continue breaking said rules. I mean, I hear from everybody, oh, we live in a lawless college football society. There's no rules anywhere. Well, yeah, it's because everyone's actively breaking those rules. So I think that this is a win for everyone involved. And the fact that Brennan Sorsby won't be playing is eliminating this dark cloud that I think would have been hovering around college football, around Texas Tech, and around what the future for college football might look like if the rules are simply just a suggestion and you can push back against them with 20-minute long social media videos and very handsomely paid lawyers that can kind of bargain on your behalf in a courtroom.
If you walk into a party and the first thing they say is, we don't have very many rules, got 3 or 4 rules, just got to follow those. If you break one of those, you're kicked out of the party. Again, I cannot change the fact that some of the things that are just abhorrent that happen around college football, there isn't a specific written rule for. There's a specific written rule for this. He broke it. He shouldn't play. But I also think, Caroline, what's interesting is that, and Booger McFarland pointed this out on social media last night, there's this presumption that the NFL is just waiting with open arms for Brennan Sorsby. The NFL also doesn't like people that gamble on games that they play in. So the NFL also has strict gambling rules. And I realize that we say, well, talent wins over everything. Talent wins over everything most of the time, but gambling is something that the league has been sticky on, and people think it's hypocritical and doesn't make any sense. The NFL doesn't care about that. I think you're right. Like, the weird part about this is this was simple. I mean, he was never supposed to play. This got complicated, but also weird to me in the end is, in some ways, everybody walks away a little bit of a loser and a little bit of a winner. Like, Texas Tech doesn't have to deal all year with the fact that people are sitting here saying, oh my God, you killed the fabric. They don't have to deal with the lawsuit against the Big 12. The Big 12 doesn't have to deal with the lawsuit against their own charter members in their conference. College football doesn't have to deal with this mess on their face. Brennan Sorsby, of course, is a little bit of a loser because he doesn't get to play, but Texas Tech has already announced he won't have to repay any of the NIL he's been paid in this process because they want to come across like they are always looking out for guys that have been part of their program. So again, Brennan Sorsby still gets millions of dollars in this process, even though he's not going to get to play. Of all of the outcomes that could happen from his own errors, from his own misjudgments, from his own addiction, he's still going to walk away with the fat bank account, which is kind of insane here. So the NFL wins because they get a shot at talent to bring in, but they also lose because they don't get the extra development. And it's weird to bring him in. Like, I think clearly everybody's a winner and everybody's a loser in this entire process. And for all of us that love the sport of college football, that have been around the sport of college football, that cover it, I think this was an important outcome, but also it's exhausting. It's exhausting to me that attorney generals are getting involved in college football. It's exhausting to me that Texas Tech, that the attorney general of Texas, that they thought that they could just throw a massive lawsuit out and nobody would fight him back. Like, we know money wins everything, but it's exhausting to me having Cody Campbell come out, the benefactor that's given so much money and basically runs the Texas Tech financial portions, like coming out and saying, Texas Tech has done nothing wrong in this process. Like, through all of it, the grandstanding, the obnoxious holier than thouisms of the entire thing has just been exhausting, Caroline. So in some ways, I think what's weird is that we've all won, and I'm just glad the whole damn thing is over.
I am too. I'm glad the thing is over, and that thing is Brennan Sorsby not playing in college football. Because Brennan Sorsby moving on from Texas Tech and entering the supplemental draft, that's just the best thing for this to all go away. And I think we ultimately got to this point after all of the public statements and the 20-minute long video and Joey McGuire, Texas Tech head coach, calling Brennan Sorsby a victim. I'm glad that all of that is over because all of that was just frankly ridiculous. And I think Texas Tech expected the general public to resonate with and sympathize for Brennan Sorsby more when they really tried to paint him as a, kind of a victim of the system, which that's not what it was. Look, he was a young man with an addiction to something, and he broke the rules while he was in the, in the throngs of addiction. And unfortunately, you have to pay the consequences for your actions. Nobody really bought into the picture that Texas Tech was trying to paint. I think they expected a little bit more sympathy from the general public. But after all of those things that Brennan Sorsby, it's just done. I think they understood that this legal battle was going to be so much more difficult than they initially anticipated, that the rest of the Big 12, the rest of college football was not going to go down without a fight. I mean, it was even outside of the Big 12. Josh Brooks, the Georgia athletic director, Nebraska's athletic director, they said, we're not going to schedule you in any sport at all until this gets resolved. So I think Texas Tech just understood, look, this is going to be way, way, way more trouble than it's worth. And I'm sure Brennan Sorsby, to a certain extent, felt a way of, I don't want to be an example of what is wrong with college football. I don't want to be the face of a really scary transitioning and happening in college football where a world without rules and regulations gets that much more lawless. I think everyone at a certain point has just kind of thought, man, we're done fighting this thing. Clearly, Texas Tech, this is not a decision that they made easily. I mean, Cody Campbell, the big multi-billionaire donor to Texas Tech athletics, who's essentially writing all of Brennan Sorsby's checks, put out a long statement last night on social media, essentially saying, he wasn't going to get the opportunity to redeem himself. A young man wasn't going to get the opportunity to prove everybody wrong. And it's like, okay, we hear you on that, but enough with the sob story. So this clearly was against what Texas Tech really would have wanted. I mean, obviously it's June 16th. Texas Tech is going to be going into training camp. Texas Tech is going to be going into this season. I don't know who their quarterback's going to be. So of course, this isn't a move that Texas Tech wanted to make, but I think deep down, everybody understands this is best case scenario long term. In the short term, really uncomfortable for Texas Tech. It's a similar situation that Tennessee was in not that long ago when Nico Yamaliava ultimately left the program because he wanted like $8 million a year. And Tennessee was like, no, we'd rather not have a quarterback this season than pay you far above what we feel like you're worth.
The interesting part about all of this is I feel like Texas Tech, Sorsby, the Texas Attorney General, everybody in this process was banking on the divisiveness of college football. I think they were banking on the fact that college football never bands together against anything. So the concept of, all right, we're going to put out a massive lawsuit and we're going to have our attorney general speak out. We're going to make sure that we're fighting for this kid, however you want to couch it. I think part of what you're banking on at that point is that you're just going to exhaust everybody else and they're going to say, you know what, fine, we'll figure it out later. You guys play. We can't do anything about it. Instead, this is one of the rare moments in all of college sports where everybody came together for one thing. Everybody involved in this, whether it's the Big 12, and I would implore everybody to go read the piece that Ross Dellinger has written on Yahoo Sports about this incident, and specifically attorneys talking about how creative the counterfiling was in the middle of the night by the collective Big 12. And, you think about what they did in court. They went in and they made a statement that we will fight you all the way through to protect our conference. And then, as I said earlier, you have two other states' attorney generals coming in saying, we will fight the attorney general of the state of Texas. It takes so much to get everybody to play together nicely in the sandbox in college football. I think the most surprising development here is that we finally have had a moment where college football looked around and said, nope, this is the Wild Wild West, but even the Wild Wild West has rules. Like, if you go all the way back in history, as ridiculous as it sounds to kids today that don't study, history of America, there were actually rules of war back in the Revolutionary War days. And it was like, well, how could you do this guerrilla warfare thing where you hide behind trees and you jump out on people, because that breaks the rules. Even in this case of chaos in college football right now, it's amazing to me that we finally found a spot where all the conferences, all the schools, all the attorney generals, all of the legalese involved looked around and said, man, this might be a weird time, but we have rules. This is the one. And I don't think Texas Tech was banking on that. I don't think Texas Tech ever believed that the one thing that would get everybody in college football to come together and say, fine, you want to fight us with your richest donor? We will get all of our richest donors and we will take you on 1 versus a million if we have to. I think the misjudgment here from Texas Tech, Sorsby, and everybody else involved in this case from a Texas Tech side is they didn't anticipate finally getting a unified college football front that was going to push back against them, and they don't have the power to beat that.
I will give Texas Tech just a tiny ounce of credit for something. They're still going to pay Brennan Sorsby the NIL deal that he signed for. And there are a lot of schools that probably would say, like, look, we're not going to ask you to back pay, but you're not going to get what we were going to pay you because you're not going to be able to, give us those services. But I think that's a good look on Texas Tech. There's probably a lot of quarterbacks around the country that have had conversations with Joey McGuire, with Cody Campbell, with everyone in Texas Tech football leadership. And they're looking at how they've treated Brennan Sorsby and thinking, yeah, I want to be part of that. that Texas Tech has said so many times, we want to care for this young man. We care about his well-being. We care about his future. It'd be a really bad look if they in turn then said, okay, then see you, bye. Give us our money back. We're not going to pay you a cent more. So they're literally putting their money where their mouth is. Cody Campbell's good for it. He's like a cajillionaire. But I think that paying Brennan Sorsby, even though he can't play this year, is a really good look for this program and good on him.
Just a reminder, too, name, image, likeness cannot be tied to playing time. It cannot be tied to incentives. It can only be tied to marketing. And this is all because of the legalese involved in the process of making sure that players aren't listed as employees. It can only be tied to marketing. You can make the argument that Brandon Sorsby has done more for marketing Texas Tech football in the last 2 months, accidental, tragic, or not, than almost anybody possibly could. So even in this process, to your point, Caroline, just the number of recruits that now suddenly look at it and say, well, if that's how they're going to be, I want to be there too. Brandon Sorsby has done a lot. And should we all be so lucky in our lives to make catastrophic mistakes that we bounce back from while still getting paid millions of dollars for what we were owed, even though we weren't actually able to do our jobs? Again, that's why this is a very weird situation where everybody lost and weirdly everybody has won. Hopefully this is the last time we ever have to update you on Brandon Sorsby and the NCAA. But if not, we'll get some more brilliant thoughts on it later in the show. Also, Stephen Godfrey going to join us. We'll see what Godfrey thinks of all of this magic. But coming up next, back to the NBA. Trade time is here. And one name we didn't expect to be talking about was Trae Young. Trae getting traded? That was easy to say. We'll talk about it next on Yahoo Sports Daily.
There was a big bright light shining on the hall, and I saw these two figures, and they were coming. I couldn't see who they were. It was just like dark, shadowy figures. And then we walked past them, and I was just talking to Jeff, and they were talking about before we started signing about how it goes. And then grabbed me from behind. He's like, hey, he says, you're not even going to say hello to me? You're doing that? And it was Taker. I said, I had no idea it was you, but that's so cool. It's so good to see you, man. I gave him a hug, and I said, man, I got to tell you, I said, I'm super excited for you, man. Are you excited for Dave Meltzer to give you the Booker of the Year award? And he said, shut up,
How do you sort of take your game to the next level in what is now a split backfield?
Yeah, you always need a split backfield running back. We take a lot of hits. We get hit every play, either for you blocking or running. And I say Montgomery, he been doing a great job just going off of just learning my style of play, me learning his style of play, learning new things. You always need a tandem 1-2 punch in the backfield. Sometimes you need a 3-punch. So just getting that in, and we just getting to work right now.
Got to get a touchdown on this possession. Stepping up Garrett. Garrett surveying. He wants it all. End zone Flavors is there.
No
but it's
way.
pulled away by
No
Cook.
way.
Cook pulled it out of the
No
air
way.
and out of the hands of Flavors for a Northern Arizona touchdown.
Way. That just happened. In my mind, I'm thinking INT, ball game's over. Marlon Cook says, give me this. I need it.
Myles Garrett traded to the Rams. They're trying to live in two worlds where they've got an eye on the future with the quarterback they took this year, but also clearly, maybe more than any other team we've seen, trying to push here for a Super Bowl, which the burden of expectations is going to be tough on that team this year. Like it is, sometimes I kind of roll my eyes at the Super Bowl or bust idea, but this really is like, that's it. Like Super Bowl or bust. Everything else it would be a failure of a season.
Trae Young is reportedly a backup option for the Miami Heat if they miss out on Giannis Antetokounmpo. That per Jake Fisher. Quote, I've been told by various sources that in addition to the LA Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, and Memphis's Ja Morant, Wizards point guard Trae Young has emerged as another big fish backup option for the Miami Heat in the event that Boston, Portland, or some other team manages to outbid Pat Riley in the chase for Antetokounmpo. Caroline, man, that is some big fish hunting. Like, it's clear that Miami is playing video game basketball right now. It just feels like they're just look, if we don't get you, in what world are you getting even the same? Hey, if we can't get Giannis, we'll go get Trae Young. Like, that is the most apples and oranges comp that I could ever imagine in a player you're trying to acquire. It makes it clear Miami's trying to acquire brand power right now.
Miami at this point is like give us somebody. We just need to land a big fish of any kind. Don't ask us specifics. We just want a big name. Because Giannis, I get it. Like, Giannis will be a difference maker for you. And if he's healthy, he'll be a difference maker for you in the postseason. Now, Trae Young is going to sell you tickets. Trae Young is a household name. Trae Young, I think, is going to be really fun and really exciting and is going to be able to score a lot of points. And it might be a story on SportsCenter. But is Trae Young the difference for you in not winning a championship, not making the postseason versus hoisting a Larry O'Brien? I don't really necessarily believe so. Now, Trae Young and Giannis, now we're talking. But Trae Young doesn't play nearly enough defense, if he plays defense at all, for him to be the difference maker in the postseason. And I don't think that you make a big blockbuster trade like this just to win a bunch of games in the regular season and fizzle out, once we get into April and into May. So I don't necessarily buy into what would be required in a trade package. Also, if you're the Wizards, you have the number 1 overall pick. You're trying to bring along your young future superstar, Darryn Peterson, AJ DeBonza, Cam Boozer, whoever it's going to be. You want to bring him along with a veteran in the room. You want to bring in your young player and actually start to win some basketball games, to start to instill belief into your fan base that, hey, no, we can actually turn this thing around, that guy is going to be the difference maker for our team. You want to sell tickets. You want to get butts and seats. So what does trading Trae Young do for you, at least for right now? Now, draft picks, continuing to build your team for the future, you can sell me that, but I just don't think that this makes a difference enough for Miami for what it's going to cost to trade for him. I think if you're Miami, it's Giannis or it's nothing.
I don't disagree with that. I also don't understand the strategy when the names that are being thrown out are so dissimilar in what they do and how they do it. If I'm suddenly posting to the world and saying, hey, you know what? I'm building a band and I'm going to have the best rock band in the world. I'm doing drummer auditions and a drummer comes in and in the middle of his audition, I'm like, if I don't get this drummer, I'll just go get that guitar player. They're two totally different things. It just doesn't make sense. The way they play, what they do, how they would impact a team, how you build around them is wildly different in every single way. So if you're telling me our plan is just to make sure that we get better, that's not really a plan. You have to have an identity of the type of basketball you're going to play. You have to have an identity of what you're building and how you're building for it, who you need in the room to build the right way around these things. Great teams understand in every sport, understand their identity. If your identity is we're just going to go out and get the biggest name possible and then figure out how to play around them, that doesn't work. Every time we see that sort of a move where somebody just goes and acquires a star, what do we hear the first season they're there? Well, it takes a second to gel together. We got to figure each other out. And then you start to figure each other out. And a couple years in, you hope that things are starting to go well. Like, that's not a plan. If your plan is to go in and say, hey, we're going to treat this like fantasy basketball and we're just going to take whatever player is best, you may or may not be able to build a great real basketball team that way. It doesn't make a lot of sense. If you told me that they were looking for the same type of players and had 3 or 4 different options, if they were looking for the same type of player to build around, to run their offense around, to run their culture around, and they had 3 or 4 different options, I'm looking at it and saying, yeah, protect yourself. But what you get from a performance standpoint, what you get from a stylistic standpoint, what you get from an experience standpoint, and what you get from a culture standpoint is wildly different for Trae Young, James Harden, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Ja Morant. At that point, it just feels like you're going into the bar and you're just looking at every single girl and going up and buying every one of them a drink. Hey, you want to go on a date? Want to go on a date? Want to go on a date? That's a strategy that just doesn't work. Doesn't lead to greatness. You're not going to find your soulmate that way. I'm sorry. I feel like Miami right now is telling us the real truth, which is they're desperate for a star to make them relevant, and that's not the way you build a great basketball team.
Also important to point out, if Miami does make this move, I don't think they're only making this move for 1 year. You don't trade for Trae Young just to go all in on the 2026-2027 season. Well, Trae Young is only under contract through next year. So not only
Mm.
would you be trading the assets, the players, the draft picks, whatever it might be to acquire Trae Young, you would also need to sign him. He currently makes $50 million a year. So are you going to trade the assets for Trae Young and then also turn around and pay him? And then there is still a question mark of how far you can go into the postseason, because there have been fair question marks about Trae Young and how much he can elevate you in the postseason when he doesn't play defense. So that just seems all a little bit too rich for my blood, especially for a Miami team that feels like they have much larger, holes to fill and much bigger needs than just a guy that can give you what Trae Young can give you offensively. Is Trae Young a great shooter and a great scorer? Yes, absolutely, 1000%. I am not denying that in the slightest. But then that opens up another big hole of, where's your big man? Who's going to, show up and play defense when it matters most? Because if you're going to trade picks, Tyler Hero, whatever, to acquire Trae Young, and you're also going to extend him, and you're also going to pay him north of $50 million a year, shouldn't that solve more problems than it actually creates?
Well, and to that end, when you talk about solving problems, wasn't Trae Young supposed to be part of the solution in Washington? Like just a few months ago, it was no. With their draft capital, AD and Trae Young, Washington's about to become really relevant here. Now, I think it's important to point out Miami's backup plan doesn't mean that Washington has any interest in being that. We have no indication on whether or not the Wizards actually want to be the third choice for Miami. It's like, it's cute for all of us to sit here and report, well, they've got this plan. It takes two to tango all the way across the board. So what can they offer by the time they get to that point? What can they offer the Wizards that are actually going to be part of their long-term development plan? It felt like the Wizards were at least trying to tell us, hey, this is the concept of what we're going to build around. And without knowing what that first overall pick is going to be, I just don't know. If you're Washington, do you really want to take a first overall pick in this year's draft and basically leave them in the wilderness of Washington where there's nothing around them culturally and nothing around them to win, just to hope that eventually they figure out? Or do you want to have some players around them that you believe can help make that a bigger impact out of the gates? We see Pat Riley here, Caroline, and all of this just speaks to the fact that Pat Riley at this stage in his life and his career doesn't want to sit around and do a draft develop depth process. Pat Riley wants to do a Knicks process. Let's go out and get the players, bring them together and build something. It just, again, as we've said countless times about the Knicks, I think it undersells how special what the Knicks just did was to presume that you can just rebuild that. Riley has been trying to find the magic for the Heat for a minute, and it just hasn't worked. All of this speaks to me to whether or not they have the right people in the room to make decisions anymore. Not taking anything away from the greatness of Pat Riley and what his mind and his work has meant to the NBA for generations, but that doesn't help Miami today suddenly become a championship contender. And by the way, neither does Trae Young.
Finding the magic for the Heat sounds like a great documentary name for Florida basketball. We'll workshop that one. Coming to Netflix, June 2027. And also, let's not forget, Atlanta struggled to find a trade partner for Trae Young when they were looking to move on from him. It wasn't like Trae Young had the most robust market out there. No, maybe that's changing. Maybe Miami's interest really starts to, drum up some of the marketplace for Trae Young. Of course, those things can change. But if you're Washington, I think that you would probably want a pretty advantageous trade package in return. But I don't think that existed for Atlanta. I don't know how drastically things can change in the matter of months for that to be advantageous for Washington. And you bring up the Knicks style of building a contender. The Knicks showed us that if you have a vision for your team and you go out and you trade a bunch of picks and you trade a bunch of players and you do a bunch of moves that don't seem incredibly popular at the time because they really weren't. Like, let's remember, when OG was in Toronto, he's kind of banged up, didn't really contribute a ton offensively, but the Knicks were like, no, that's our guy. He's an important part of our process. And he was, but it wasn't a popular move at the time. Trading 5 first-rounders for Mikal Bridges, like, are you sure about that? The Knicks were like, nope, yep, we're sure.
You sure about that?
Right. Yeah, you sure about that? Like, the Knicks didn't make the most popular moves at the time, but all of them were tiny little puzzle pieces in what they wanted to do in a much larger scheme of things. So I don't know if you can necessarily subscribe to the exact formula of the way that the Knicks did it, because all of those pieces just fit together so perfectly with the team, with those players, with Mike Brown being able to unlock all of all of their greatness together and putting them together as a unit. So if you're following the formula of just trade a bunch of picks and get the big name players, it's no guarantee that you're going to get Knicks results.
Also, to your point, if you look back at the champions of the last several years, they knew who they were and they spent time developing with that very specific vision. The Knicks took a few years to build into what we just saw in a championship run, but they always understood exactly what they were building for and how they were building it. They didn't listen to the outside noise. They did it their way, right? Did it my way. You're welcome, Sinatra. OKC before then did it exactly the way OKC felt they needed to do. They didn't listen to an outside noise. They did exactly what they needed to do. The Celtics before that, for all the years of trade them, the Celtics didn't listen. They had a very clear vision, and they built for that vision. You can keep going year by year, and you can see championships are built with a very clear vision. Now somebody tell me how anything that we're seeing out of Miami indicates a clear vision of what they're trying to do. Speaking of those champions, the last 8 seasons have given us 8 champions. The question is, does the NBA actually have a parity problem? We'll break it down next.
Why is it still difficult for the U.S., especially the U.S. men's national team, to sort of be this bigger power?
I think there's two things. One, you can't price out the working class from games, and it covers every culture, every demographic. Also, you have to inspire, right? You need a product on the field that makes people want to go spend that money to watch you play, right? And so I think that's the two things that you're kind of dancing with.
Possibly for one of those RPO type plays where you put it in Tomas's gut, but you see the sticky coverage on the outside, trying not to allow for easy completions.
From the 16, they send the blitz. He lofts it, corner of the end zone. What a catch against the wall. Quentin Randolph.
Problem was, this is good coverage. You just got to continue to run. Right there, you see Page kind of give up on it.
Mike Leach revolutionizes offense in the SEC with the air raid. Bob Stoops gets the Oklahoma job. He calls the guy whose offense drove him the craziest, who makes Mike Leach's offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. That works really well. Texas Tech hires Mike Leach. That changed high school football in the state of Texas. Meanwhile, you had players from Texas Tech going into the NFL saying, hey, here's what we did. He changed football at every level.
1:18 to play, third quarter, pumps once, DeLaura rolls. DeLaura calling after his receivers, back across the field, wide open, McKee inside the 10, Seneca McKee, angles for the end zone, touchdown, Nighthawks.
But he keeps the play alive and just finds the backside. McKee with the great finish. Phenomenal job right there by DeLaura.
To me, this is beautiful. No excuses, no unassailable mountain. That is a tweet that caused a ton of reaction, showing the last 8 NBA champions, because as you know by now, the last 8 years in the NBA have given us a different champion every single year. In fact, it's funny to me that the sport that constantly tells everybody that parity exists is the NFL. But if you look at championship runs over time, you'll see that the NFL doesn't really have the parity we think they do when it comes to the championships themselves, and the NBA does. So the question is parity a good thing in this situation, Caroline? 8 champions in 8 years, is that good for the league?
I do think it's good for the league. I do think this sense of belief that it's anyone's year every single year is a good one, because if the same team or same 2 teams win every championship over the span of 5 to 10 years, that's kind of exhausting. That's kind of like, well, we can draft this guy, we can trade for this guy, but it's not going to make a difference because the big bad, whoever's are just going to win a championship like they always do. And that also breeds just exhaustion. Like, I think we all kind of had Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes fatigue. I think we all kind of had Tom Brady and the New England Patriots fatigue. when you have a new champion every single year, it's you constantly have this belief of this can be ours, and that's a positive thing. I do think though, when you have teams, these big bad teams that are always in the conversation, I do think that is a good thing because I do think that dynasties can breed that kind of hatred. It's easy to root for a dynasty, it's easy to root against a dynasty. Because I think it's important to point out, even though we've had 8 different champions in the last 8 years, I don't think the Oklahoma City Thunder are going anywhere. And everyone was rooting against the Thunder this past year. It was like Wemby, the new kid on the block, against the big bad Oklahoma City Thunder. I think that was a really easy thing for people to latch on to. The Celtics won a championship the year before. I think we all viewed the Celtics as a legitimate championship contender this season. The Denver Nuggets the year before. I think we all still view the Denver Nuggets as a big-time player in the West. So even though we've had different champions, we've still had teams that continue to hang around and are still firmly within their championship windows.
So for me, repetition and repetitiveness, I guess, can create momentum. And I understand 8 seasons, 8 champions feels great, but it means every single year you're taking a massive roll of the dice. Think about it. As great as this year's final was, and as much as we all watched every single second of it, just a year ago, we had the lowest TV ratings for an NBA final in over a decade, excluding COVID. So when you are a new champion every year, you take the chance. One year you might get Knicks versus Wemby, and it's a freak show, and oh my God, I can't wait to watch every second of it. One year you might get Indiana versus OKC, and people just don't care. So at some point, I think part of the reason we look at it today and say, oh, this is great is because 8 seasons, 8 champions feels awesome. But last year, when it was 7 champions over the last 7 seasons and the ratings were plummeting, the answer looked wildly different. So I think there is something to the fact that people fall in love or hate with something they see over and over and over again. The Macarena was never a great song, but once you heard it enough times, you were either a fan of it or you hated it. That's what dynasties are in sports. It's not always about the team being the best. It's about having these people that you see over and over, countless, constant sort of exposure to them gives you a reason to root for or against them. How many people watching a sport or an athlete for the first time don't really have a rooting interest? They don't care. They're just watching it. They pick up on it. Well, over time, they see that same team or athlete over and over and over again. And now all of a sudden they start to feel some kind of way, a positive or a negative. If you have a new champion every year, realistically to your casual audience, you're introducing new stars every year. It's hard to fall in love with people that quickly. It's hard to fall in hate with people that quickly. So to me, what you get out of dynasties is you get this moment where, frankly, 20 years ago, nobody cared about Golden State basketball at all. You couldn't, there was nobody walking around with the Golden State Warriors jersey outside of the state of California anywhere. But then they go on a dynastic run. Then we get Steph, and we get all of the personalities that come through that run. And before you know it, the brand means more, the players mean more. You see jerseys everywhere. Why? Because they were there enough for people to fall in love or hate with them. There's power to that. So while I love the concept of every year we've got a chance, to me, the actual fall in love with result, the thing that people gravitate to, they all say they want parity, but the thing that makes most people gravitate towards something is star power. And to have star power, you have to have sustainability. Dynasties create sustainability.
And dynasties can also breed contempt. I think both things can be true.
Mm-hmm.
That, that how long ago was it that we were all rooting for this young, plucky team in Oklahoma City? And then fast forward to now, and we hear, opposing fans start to yell flop, or we're talking about SGA, ruining the game because he's too dramatic when trying to draw fouls. It happens that quickly. It can happen overnight that all of a sudden you go from this team that's brought, a really rabid fan base to the top of the basketball world, and all of a sudden everyone's rooting against you. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because villains are an easy trope to identify with in sports. I think that every sport, just like every single movie, you need a hero and you need a villain. That's easy to latch onto. Just like I felt like Wemby felt like the hero in the Western Conference Finals, all of a sudden in the NBA Finals, he's turned into a villain. The court of public opinion can kind of flip on you like that. But those are the kind of things that I think are important for the sport, whether it comes in the form of a dynasty, whether it comes in the form of being the new kids on the block, whether it comes in the form of being a 7'5", never been seen before, never been done before in the history of the NBA. You always try to attract casuals. You say this all the time, Fitzy. It's not about trying to appease to the diehard fans, because the diehards, they're going to be there no matter what. It's about trying to appease to the casuals, trying to attract new fans. How do you appease to the casuals? How do you attract new fans? Having easy things to root for or to root against. And dynasties are one of those things that can, draw a lot of parity. Either you love the dynasty, either you love the familiarity, either you love the continuity of knowing that that guy, that coach, that brand, whatever it might be, is going to be represented on the biggest stages of basketball, football, baseball, whatever it might be, or you actively root against it. So I think either way, it's a good thing for the NBA. Either way, it's a good thing for sports. And I think that now we're kind of getting the best of both worlds. We're getting new champions. We have this idea that any year can be our year, but you also have those potential dynasties that are looming. If Oklahoma City wins a championship next year, I would still consider that a dynasty. You win a championship, you go to Game 7 in the Western Conference Finals, you turn around the next year and you win another championship. That, I think, is a dynasty loading. So still having that storyline within our grasp kind of offers you that dynastic time of conversation without having the fatigue of it's OKC's year every single year.
Maybe as you talked about it, I'm thinking maybe it's not about winning championships. Maybe it's about remaining in proximity long enough for people to fall in love with the journey too. Like, we think about championships and dynasties in this whole conversation, but I think part of what we have to acknowledge is that I think we're looking at OKC versus Wemby for the next decade, right? OKC San Antonio can be a rivalry for the next decade. And because they're in the same conference, they're not going to win championships, both of them, all the time. It's not going to turn into championship series. It's just going to be in the West. They're going to annihilate each other over and over and over again. But they're going to be consistent players in this. So to your point, maybe the halfway here that's a real win for the league isn't just about winning championships and dynasties. It's about having the same players in close proximity to that, fighting through to get their opportunity. Like, we fell in love with or hate with the Celtics long before they won a championship because it was easy to talk about whether Brown and Tatum could ever do it. Could they ever win a championship together became as important a story as them actually winning a championship. So maybe just the proximity to that, which is something the modern NBA simply allows because there's so much talent. Like, I think this is it's a good thing to me that I'm not looking at OKC and saying, okay, just plant them in the finals for the next 6 years. Like, it's a good thing to me that I'm looking at the Knicks and saying, yeah, but it's still going to be a tough road with everything that they've got in front of them. Like, I think it's a good thing that we have sort of unsure results. It gives us some reason to chaotically watch. I just think at some point we need the same 4, 6, 8 teams that are in this conversation enough for people to fall in love with, whether it's the underdog story or whether it's the holding on to their capture the flag moment. I think you have to have at least enough teams that are consistent in proximity that it gives you a rooting interest.
I also think the Knicks championship this year is so unique because there were so many, we were flooded with videos on social media of Knicks fans going absolutely insane in the streets. We also saw AI Anunoby, the robot, walking around Midtown and trash talking Wemby. We all saw the Bing Bongs in the streets watching having their own watch parties and going absolutely crazy. We all know Timothy Chalamet and Tracy Morgan and Tina Fey and Ben Stiller, these celebrities. Like, all of those things were easy for people to resonate with. The entire city of New York was just absolutely ablaze. So I think that was unique, and that everyone outside of San Antonio, Texas, was rooting for the city of New York because it was a fan base that was so uniquely aligned with that team. And I think also the Knicks not winning one in the last 53 years plays into it as well. Like, if the Knicks win the next 3 championships, I don't think everybody's going to be like, oh, yay, we're so happy for the city of New York. Everyone's going to be like, get this team out of here. The Knicks are driving us crazy. So I think it's just the fact that it was a drought that was finally snapped that I think everybody could also resonate with as well. Just as much as we can resonate with dynasties, we can resonate with rabid fan bases finally getting to the mountaintop.
It is funny though, because I realize they're all different cities, but the world didn't fall in love with Oklahoma City, the city, in the process of
No.
them winning a championship. The world didn't fall in love with Boston, the city. I realize that Boston can be its own tricky city for a lot of people, but the world didn't suddenly gravitate to the Celtics fan base. All of a sudden it's like, oh man, we're seeing Boston totally different. Look at this chip for Boston. Like, that isn't what happened. I think one of the most insane things about this run that we'll never forget is the city of New York. It's one of the things that we'll never forget is watching Knicks fans. And I don't know why it hit different. I don't know. If it's because New York does have lore with so many people. I wondered if the city still had the same magic to people everywhere that it used to have. And something about this run answered that question. And I can't tell you why that's not the way people felt about the Lakers winning a championship or Denver. Suddenly everybody wasn't looking at it saying, congratulations, Denver, you earned this. But man, everybody just doing cartwheels for the city of New York has been absolutely incredible. We'll keep breaking down the Knicks championship as we continue the show, obviously, but we're going to do it next with somebody not only funnier than the rest of the world, but a bigger Knicks fan than the rest of the world. Michael Blaustein going to join us next. We'll get Michael's thoughts on everything from Michael Blaustein on what we can expect from the Knicks fan himself coming up.
Do you have any advice that you could give to Christian Pulisic about how to handle this World Cup?
I think if he can find a zone where he is like that kid again that is on the field with his buddies, and these are his buddies, this national team, these guys are close, and just understand not overthink the opportunity and the pressure and the home World Cup, but be like, what a privilege it is for us to be on this field right now representing the United States.
He's gotta lock it in.
Right here, under 8, down by 3. It's one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league. Fired, caught, open space in front. Karan Ashley still on his feet inside the 5, touchdown! This is again why we love the indoor football league.
I was honestly like going through the free agency process for the first time, kind of like, taking it how it came to me. Had, different teams calling me up, and I feel like the Bills were the best team to help me reach my goal of winning the Super Bowl. They've been so close in the past, and as an organization, they want to get over that hump. They want to, hold up that Lombardi trophy, and that's something I wanted to do. So our goals and our visions align with that, and, I felt like it was the best spot for me.
See how things go. And this is the kickoff here by Kevin Macias, who was a Sugar Skull until 2 weeks ago. And the return up to the races, Aaron Jackson. Touchdown, Sugar Skulls returning the opening kickoff.
This is outstanding. And you know what's funny? So I was downstairs, and Mr. Jackson came up to me. He was like, hey, man, I appreciate you saying good things about me. I was like, look, if you make plays, I'm going to say good things. So if you want me to keep saying great things about you, keep making plays.
Knicks fans are still rejoicing, Caroline, and so is that man, James Dolan, the owner of the New York Knicks, who not that long ago was absolutely being talked about, and let's say not the kindest of terms. And all of a sudden, it's amazing how that changes. We've seen this in other sports. Remember when the Houston Texans were supposedly a team that was run so poorly, nobody would ever want to coach there, nobody would ever want to play there, and things turn around quickly. Ownership, the view on ownership changes with unparalleled success. And for whatever James Dolan has done wrong for a very long time, the thing that we've talked about a lot this morning and since the Knicks won is their culture and their championship culture and their patience in putting it together, getting the right guys in the room. James Dolan deserves an apology from a lot of people that thought he was incapable of doing what the Knicks just did.
Well, I think ownership is one of the more under talked about things in sports and probably the most important aspect of an individual organization. You can fire bad players. You can fire bad coaches. You cannot fire a bad owner. A bad owner can keep you in the depths of your respective leagues for decades and decades. And I thought for a long time that James Dolan was one of those owners. Now, maybe, a blind squirrel can find a nut every once in a while. Sometimes a broken clock is right twice a day. Maybe James Dolan just struck gold and had a lucky season. Maybe he made a bunch of bad decisions along the way and they somehow just happened to fit. Or maybe this was all part of James Dolan's larger plan. Whatever it was, he won a championship, and championships change the calculus of your legacy, of your reputation, how you're viewed for the right now, and how you'll be viewed forever. That's what a championship does. That's why every coach, every player, every owner is in pursuit of that, because it changes everything. So I owe James Dolan an apology, because there are a lot of moves that the Knicks have made along the way that I thought, God, what in the world? That's so dumb. A lot of people thought that Jalen Brunson was overpaid by the Knicks. Well, I look dumb for thinking that now. I thought trading for OG Anunoby was not going to be an impactful move in the slightest. You can make an argument that OG Anunoby was the best Knicks player in the postseason. Now, Jalen Brunson the most important, but OG Anunoby leveled up his play in the postseason more than any other player on that team. I thought, Cat, he was just wildly inconsistent in Minnesota. You're really going to trade for him? He's going to be the missing piece? Yup, he was. Absolutely, he was. 5 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges. Good player, but, are you sure? 5 first-round picks? You're going to mortgage your future for this guy? Well, turned out I was wrong, and I was dumb, and they were right, and they were smart. Even moving on from Tom Thibodeau last year, I remember I got up in front of a microphone and I said, who do you think you are? You just got to the Eastern Conference Finals with Tom Thibodeau and you're just going to fire him because that's not good enough for you? You're going to bring in Mike Brown, who was just fired from Sacramento? Are you serious? Shows how much I know. Because all of those pieces, all of those players, and Mike Brown himself, they all made a difference. They all played their own important role in this championship run. So whether this was James Dolan's vision all along or if he just got lucky, kind of doesn't matter at this point because he's got a Larry O'Brien.
And there's years worth of work here. Hiring Leon Rose back in 2020, I believe it was. You think about the things. Look, I'm not saying James Dolan has done everything right. Certainly there are curiosities to James Dolan, the way that he runs his business. And, we could talk about some of the grudges he holds, all of these things. There are quirks and nuances to James Dolan. But the fact is he got the right people in the building at the right time. And I think there's a message of hope for every fan of a team that sucks, right? Because the thing that we do gravitate to as fans is we don't stand a chance because our owner sucks. That's what we all say. Now, look at Tom Dundon, who we've been repeatedly calling, we've been nicknaming and mocking in the NBA for being a cheap owner, but he just won a championship in the NHL with the Carolina Hurricanes, right? I'm a Raiders fan. Everybody knows that. Mark Davis constantly, just absolutely rightfully so, critiqued as the owner of my beloved Raiders, but you can't critique the work he's done with the Vegas Aces. So it's just a reminder sometimes that we look at ownership and we say, well, this guy sucks. It's a blanket statement that feels good because we don't know who else to blame. And I'm not sure that necessarily Dolan suddenly got brilliant. I don't think that Dolan went to bed one night, got a better night of sleep, and woke up and was like, yay, now I've got it all figured out. But it worked. He did it his way. It took a long time. It was a different path, but it worked. And whether that's a broken clock is right twice a day, or whether that's he figured something out brilliantly, I don't know, but does it matter? I think what we forget sometimes especially as fans of teams that don't perform well, our immediate presumption is we got to blow everything up and that's why we suck. Well, sometimes you just got to keep taking swings. You just got to keep taking bites of the apple. And that's what Dolan did. He wasn't afraid to swing over and over and over again. He got it wrong a lot of times, but if you get it wrong a lot of times to eventually get it right once, it was worth it. This doesn't erase all of the things that James Dolan has done that are questionable as an owner of an NBA franchise, but certainly it does change the way that we have to sort of couch our conversation. Because as much as we sit there and say, when you win a championship in New York, you're seen differently forever. We talk about that with Jalen Rose and every player, with Jalen Brunson and every player that ever considers playing for the Knicks, right? But we have to say the same thing now about their ownership group because he did the unthinkable. He brought the Larry O.B. into Madison Square Garden. I think at some point, while you still have to acknowledge all the bad, I think it gives fans of every team that sucks hope that, hey, you know what? Our path to not sucking is just by continually trying to do this until we get it right.
Yeah. And finally winning one changes the perception of you and how you got there drastically. Can you imagine if the Rams didn't win a Super Bowl? Can you imagine if the Cincinnati Bengals won that year? We'd be looking at F them picks as a dumb process. We'd be looking at like, are you really sure
You're
you want
right.
to throw out all of the picks out of the window? Are you sure that you don't want to build for the future? But now we talk about F them picks and that being, the Rams' approach to building their rosters is like, yeah, that's awesome. That's hilarious. They're smarter than everybody else. They're playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. Like that changes everything. If the Rams, haven't been continuously in the Super Bowl conversation, we'd be looking at that approach like with an eyebrow raised. We'd be looking at it kind of how I view the Jacksonville Jaguars. As you traded all of that capital to trade up with the Cleveland Browns and take Travis Hunter. Like, are you really sure that that's the best path forward? Is Travis Hunter really going to be that kind of difference maker that, excuse me, that you thought he was going to be worth trading all of those picks for? So if the Jags, let's just say, got to an AFC championship game, Travis Hunter was a leading receiver and also contributed on defense, we would be saying, what a brilliant strategy. That was the right move. If the Jags win a championship and Travis Hunter is a big reason for that, we'll say that is why you're bold and that is why you take big swings in the draft. But if they don't, then we'll be looking at it like, what a bad move. Those picks would have been nice to have in your back pocket. But now winning a championship, doing everything that the Knicks did, trading the picks, trading the players, all of the things, firing Tom Thibodeau and bringing in Mike Brown, all of the things that were so questionable, the decisions that they made that were criticized at the time, all of a sudden makes Leon Rose and James Dolan look like geniuses. Even if it's not a formula that's replicatable, even if it's not a formula that can get the Knicks back to an NBA championship or an NBA finals, even if it's not something that they can recapture that lightning in the bottle, they got one, and that is all that matters.
If you are a middle school kid and you're a Knicks fan, and your parents are Knicks fans, your family's Knicks fans, and somebody asks you about the Knicks and somebody asks you about James Dolan, your context right now is he got one of the best players in the world, one of the most clutch players in the history of the league to play here for less money because New York is so awesome. Yeah. He made every daring trade that was necessary to build the right roster. He gave the pregame speech, pre-playoff speech that riled the entire team up talking about sacrifice. He's already committed to giving championship rings to the significant others of every single one of his players and organizational employees. He's done all of this while also building an empire with the Vegas sphere that's suddenly turning profits, and he's running all of these different businesses at once. If you're a middle school kid that's only got a few years of life, as a fan, you are looking around and you're saying, man, it doesn't get any better than James Dolan. And I just think we need to sort of backtrack to 5 years ago, 3 years ago. He had the courage to make the coaching change you have to make when he accepted that anything less than a title isn't good enough. It is amazing. And to your point, you are so right. All it takes is one ring. We had Shaq on this show, and he talked about you can't be a champion until you are a champion. When you talk to guys that play and they tell you what a difference it makes when you've actually won that trophy, the way you see yourself, the way that you are seen, what you can bring to any group, organization, ownership, what you can bring to any locker room because you have been a champion. And James Dolan, I cannot believe I'm saying this, for years. I've been in this business for a decade, and the better part of at least 8 years of that has been spent questioning what the hell James Dolan is doing. And you know what he's doing right now? He's celebrating with the Larry O.B. wherever he wants to put the Larry O.B. in every room because he's earned the right to do that. It is crazy how one championship, and now all of a sudden we're sitting here saying, I can't believe the Knicks only have the fourth best option or odds to repeat. This is total disrespect to New York. The narrative change from this playoff run will not just be felt for a week or a month or a year. The narrative change from this playoff run on Dolan, on the Knicks, on the brand of New York basketball, on Madison Square Garden, on all of this. Caroline, this changes for a decade. Like, this just changes the way we see one of the most iconic brands in sports. And to think that that's at least in part because of James Dolan, It's just crazy how we owe that an entire change and shift in our conversation.
It changes the perception of Jalen Brunson, who went from a guy that was an undersized guard. He went from a guy that, you know, he was willing to leave $100 million on the table, a guy that nobody really wanted to pay, now to a guy who will be known as one of the most clutch players in the history of this league. When Cat went from a guy that Minnesota felt like they could win without to all of a sudden one of the more important pieces for the New York Knicks championship. Well, Landry Shamet and Jose Alvarado and all of these, you know, this ragtag bunch who honestly, a lot of people probably don't even know what they're, you know, who they were, what their names were. Now all of a sudden will be enshrined in NBA history forever. This doesn't just change the reputation and the perception of James Dolan. It doesn't just change his legacy. It doesn't just change his reputation. Every single player on that team who we either wrote off or didn't even know or kind of thought that we thought we knew who they were, all of a sudden that changes everything. The Knicks as a whole, we viewed it as a miserable franchise for the longest time. Now they're NBA champions and one of the more popular brands in basketball right now, and sports right now.
Yeah, build them all statues. I don't care. Go walking. I go to the Garden all the time. Build statues for all of them. Brunson's reach out layup, OG with the tip in, Dolan. I don't care. But you just give every single player involved with this gets their own personal statue. I support all of it.
Mikal Bridges on IG Live. That gets
oh God, yeah, just that. Give it a statue. You get a statue. You get a statue. We're gonna hand out some statues, or at least some little mini statues for some of what happened in the W. Coming up next, last night in the WNBA. We'll get you caught up.
Do you have any advice that you could give to Christian Pulisic about how to handle this World Cup?
I think if he can find a zone where he is like that kid again that is on the field with his buddies, and these are his buddies, this national team, these guys are close, and just understand not overthink the opportunity and the pressure and the home World Cup, but be like, what a privilege it is for us to be on this field right now representing the United States.
He's gotta lock it in.
Right here, under 8, down by 3. It's one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league. Fired, caught, open space in front. Karan Ashley still on his feet inside the 5, touchdown! This is again why we love the indoor football league.
I was honestly like going through the free agency process for the first time, kind of like, you know, taking it how it came to me. Had, you know, different teams calling me up, and I feel like the Bills were the best team to help me reach my goal of winning the Super Bowl. You know, they've been so close in the past, and as a organization, they want to get over that hump. They want to, you know, hold up that Lombardi trophy, and that's something I wanted to do. So our goals and our visions align with that, and you know, I felt like it was the best spot for me.
We'll see how things go, and this is the kickoff here by Kevin Macias, who was a Sugar Skull until 2 weeks ago, and the return up to the races, Aaron Jackson, touchdown, Sugar Skulls returning the opening kickoff.
This is outstanding. And you know what's funny? So I was downstairs, and Mr. Jackson came up to me. He was like, hey, man, I appreciate you saying good things about me. I was like, look, if you make plays, I'm going to say good things. So if you want me to keep saying great things about you, keep making plays.
It is time to get you caught up on what happened last night in the WNBA. Can we get that in? I'm just going to ask Tony, our great director, if he can play that one more time, because I just like the music. And I dun, 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 dun. Yeah. Oh, man. I am all over. All right. We're going to get you caught up on what happened in the WNBA last night. We went into last night's slate with the Aces and Lynx both tied atop the West standings. We told you about that with the Commissioner's Cup. But Minnesota seized control of the number 1 seed in style, took care of business. While the Aces, who I feel like I spent a lot of time defending and yelling at you about yesterday, played a turd of a game and got absolutely shellacked by Dallas. Caroline, should the Lynx fan base be feeling pretty good today?
Total turd of a game. So important distinction here. We can talk about two different standings. So the Lynx now have the top seed in the West as a whole. They have the top seed in the WNBA. They have the best record in the W, sitting at 11-3. But the Commissioner's Cup standings are different. Just for anybody who's new to the W, welcome, happy to have you. The Commissioner's Cup is an in-season tournament. It's East versus West, and the teams with the best records in both the East and the West will play each other in the Commissioner's Cup Championship. That'll happen at the end of the month, and the winner of that game can split $500,000 amongst the entirety of the team. All of these games matter in the WNBA standings. So different than the NBA Cup, where that game doesn't matter, doesn't go towards your standings. These games do. So while Minnesota has the top seed in the WNBA, the Aces and Minnesota are tied in the West in the Commissioner's Cup standings. So the Aces losing last night and the Lynx winning last night, massive for Minnesota's chances at getting to the Commissioner's Cup championship. Now, both of these two teams play. They don't play each other, but they both play on Wednesday. So those games will be critical in who comes out of the West. The tiebreaker in this scenario is point differential. So you can see right there, the point differential, Minnesota has a plus 111 point differential to Vegas is just 14. The difference there is, though, Vegas beat Minnesota in a Commissioner's Cup game by 3 points. So even though Minnesota has the way larger point differential as a whole in the Commissioner's Cup, when it's head-to-head, Vegas has the edge here. It's just an important distinction there. The Aces totally and completely laid a turd last night, 100%. But that was a massive statement by the Dallas Wings. Look, the Aces were on an absolute heater. I mean, the Aces before that had won 6-7 games in a row. And so you're bound to lose one every once in a while. Sometimes the grind of travel just catches up to you. Sometimes you just don't have your best night. I think we can just chalk that up to that for the Aces. It was difficult for anyone not named Asia Wilson to score. The Dallas Wings just play really good defense, and they flexed that muscle last night. Pretty much everyone got theirs for Dallas. We had Jessica Shepard with 15 points and 15 rebounds. And oh yeah, by the way, 9 assists. She had an insane night last night. And that free agency acquisition just continues to pay dividends for Dallas. Arike Ogunbowale with 22 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists. We questioned how this Arike and Paige marriage would work last season. A lot of us wondered if the Wings would move on from Arike in the offseason. They said, no, we're going to run it back with those two as being our kind of franchise cornerstones. And that has been a wonderful decision because Arike has just blossomed in this system under Jose Fernandez this season. AZ Fudd with 19 points. No, AZ has found at least a little bit of consistency. I think it's fair to say that a rookie getting her first experience in the W is going to have some ebbs and flows and some peaks and some valleys. Last night, absolutely, was where you see AZ's scoring come into play. So I think the Wings just played their best version of a basketball game, offensively and defensively, and an off night for the Aces. This at least gives the Lynx, a path to getting to the Commissioner's Cup championship, but it is a must-win game for both of these teams if they want to punch their ticket to the Commissioner's Cup championship.
There is something, though. You see the graphic there. The Wings have beaten the Aces twice this year. They're the only team to do that, to beat them twice. And it's not just that they beat them, it's that they hammered them. And in fact, while I think plus minus is a bit of an overrated stat in basketball in general, you can't take anything away from the fact that the starting 5 for Dallas, every single one of them have a plus minus of 21 or better. That's incredible. That's incredible. That's unthinkably good domination all the way across the board from their top 5. So it is a little bit of a curious moment of, hey, have they found an Achilles heel because of the way they play for Vegas? Is this suddenly a team that Vegas hopes they don't have to get more of as the season goes on? That being said, I do think your point is an important one. Vegas lays a couple of eggs a year, every year. A couple of times a year, every year, we're like, they're just not as good as they need to be. So I also think there is a level here of the Commissioner's Cup still working. And we've talked a little bit about this, Caroline, but I wasn't sure in the modern construct of the WNBA because of the way that the collective bargaining agreements worked and the different money that was coming into it. Would the Commissioner's Cup still matter? Would there be as much emphasis for a $500,000 prize pot when players are making so much more? I think it's pretty clear that it does. Like, you are seeing teams come out and play with the level of fire and passion in this Commissioner's Cup that truly matters. we can debate all day long whether the NBA Cup is a success, whether it works. You and I we work around the Indoor Football League a lot that you can watch on Yahoo Sports. I was at the IFL Cup, the midseason tournament. We can debate whether or not midseason tournaments actually work in sports. I believe the midseason tournament is still working in the W, though, because you do get more sort of emphasis on midseason results that otherwise wouldn't feel as important to everything, because it's just a game in a very long season. And we know how much is still ahead of all of these athletes that are playing. But I think the Commissioner's Cup still gives us a reason to pay attention, and you still see the importance of it in the way they play in these games.
1000%. And I think that it still matters for a couple of reasons. One, in the Commissioner's Cup, you're only playing teams in the East, or you're only playing teams in the West. You don't have the element of travel and fatigue starting to set in. And familiarity starts to breed contempt a little bit, because in the WNBA, it's not crazy, to play on the West Coast one night and then back to the East Coast another night. So when you're playing the same teams over and over again that you're familiar with, you start to build these little rivalries within the span of the season. So I think all of those things matter. I think the other thing is there's money on the line. I know that in the new CBA, players are making significantly more money than they were previously. Asia Wilson making over $1 million. We now have $1 million women in the W. That's something that we didn't have before. Now, incentives and bonuses are so much more. If you're an all-star in the WNBA this year, you'll get a $15,000 bonus. Previously, it was right just above $2,000. That's a massive increase. So yes, players are making more money, but $500,000 is a lot of money. Your fair share of $500,000 still matters. Like, let's remember, yes, Asia Wilson is making $1 million. Yes, we have several players that are making, the supermax, but a majority of the WNBA is still hovering right around $150,000, $250,000, $300,000, maybe even $500,000. So, yes, you have players that are making $1 million, and your share of $500,000 doesn't go as far when your paycheck is over $1 million. But there's a lot of players that aren't making $1 million, and your fair share of $500,000 makes a massive difference. So I think it's still fighting for that money that can make a really big difference, even when you're making more money and you're under this new CBA.
And the fact that all of these games that we're talking about, when we give you what's happening last night in the W, feel like they have a lot of weight. I know it's still early in the season, Caroline, but I think it's pretty stunning that right now the difference between being the Lynx in the 1 seed and being the Toronto Tempo and being out of the playoffs altogether is 4 games. To me, that's a pretty even spread. Like, the difference between being the 1 seed in the Lynx and being the 5 seed in Dallas and where they sit right now, or the 6 seed in Golden State where they sit right now, is 2 games. There's more weight to all of this right now because the standings are so compact, right? Like, when you look across the board of this, and look, as you pointed out earlier, the fact that the Lynx might miss out on the Commissioner's Cup because they lost by 3 to Vegas is kind of crazy. But I think it's even crazier when you just look at where we are in the standings right now. Minnesota with 11 wins, Vegas and New York with 10 wins, Atlanta, Dallas, Golden State with 9 wins. Like, what we're seeing right now is cream is rising across the W. And all of these games have a little bit more weight because there just isn't a lot of breathing room for anybody at the top of the standings. And the top of the standings matters so substantially when we get to playoff time. So I think even though it's particularly early in the season, just the fact that we are so squished in the top of the standings makes all of these games feel a little bit more heavy.
No doubt. And we just saw the tweet about Minnesota in that point differential, and they may miss out on the championship altogether because they lost the game to Vegas. So you're not feeling great about that if you're a Lynx fan, but I think overall, if you're a Lynx fan right now, you're feeling so good with or without a Commissioner's Cup championship. And so much of that is because of that woman right there. Olivia Miles is bad. I mean, last night she had 12 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. That sounds like a very kind of pedestrian stat line for Olivia Miles, who can put up 20 to 25 points on any given night. Olivia Miles is an elite passer. Olivia Miles is an elite scorer. Olivia Miles has not needed a ramping up period from the college game to the WNBA game. Olivia Miles, I think, will be an all-star, and it's not even close. Like, I think that it is, write her in your ballot right now. Olivia Miles was Rookie of the Month in May. It looks like right now, and so many things can change throughout the course of a season, but Olivia Miles would get my Rookie of the Year vote right now. Obviously, yes, things can change. There's a lot of basketball left to be played. But look at who's in street clothes in that photo. You got Olivia Miles getting high fives, and rightfully so. Courtney Williams, Kayla McBride, all balling, all with double-digit points last night. But Nafisa Collier has yet to come back. So you have Kayla McBride, Courtney Williams, Natasha Howard, Nia Coffey, Olivia Miles, all doing their thing. And Nafisa Collier, their best player, their MVP, still has yet to come back from injury. So, I mean, this Lynx team, scary.
It's going to be a wild season, and we'll catch you up on it all the way throughout the course of the entire season. Coming up next, from scary good to scary good, Stephen Godfrey going to join us next. We'll get his thoughts on the latest. I'm Brendan Sorsby.
There was a big bright light shining on the hall, and I saw these two figures, and they were coming. I couldn't see who they were. It was just like dark, shadowy figures. And then we walked past them. I was just talking to Jeff, and they were talking about before we started signing about how it goes. And then grabbed me from behind. He's like, "Hey," he says, "You're not even gonna say hello to me? You're doing that?" And it was Taker. I said, "I had no idea it was you, but that's so cool. It's so good to see you, man." I gave him a hug, and I said, "Man, I gotta tell you," I said, "I'm super excited for you, man. Are you excited for Dave Meltzer to give you the Booker of the Year award?" And he said, "Shut up," you know.
How do you sort of take your game to the next level in what is now a split backfield?
Yeah, you always need a split backfield running back. We take a lot of hits. We get hit every play, either for you blocking or running. And I say Montgomery, he been doing a great job just going off of just learning my style of play, me learning his style of play, learning new things. You always need a tandem 1-2 punch in the backfield. Sometimes you need a 3-punch. So just getting that in, and we just getting to work right now.
Got to get a touchdown on this possession. Stepping up Garrett. Garrett surveying. He wants it all. End zone Flavors is there.
No
but it's
way.
pulled away by
No
Cook.
way.
Cook pulled it out of the
No
air
way.
and out of the hands of Flavors for a Northern Arizona touchdown.
Way. That just happened. In my mind, I'm thinking INT, ball game's over. Marlon Cook says, "Give me this. I need it."
Myles Garrett traded to the Rams. They're trying to live in two worlds where they've got an eye on the future with the quarterback they took this year, but also clearly, maybe more than any other team we've seen, trying to push here for a Super Bowl, which the burden of expectations is going to be tough on that team this year. Like, it is, sometimes I kind of roll my eyes at the Super Bowl or bust idea, but this really is like, that's it. Like, Super Bowl or bust. Everything else it would be a failure of a season.
Brendan Sorsby applying for the supplemental draft is the beginning, not the end. The next question is whether the NFL will put a Terrell Pryor on him, which essentially means the NFL carrying over any sort of punishments or any sort of action against the player. Brendan Sorsby has become an absolute lightning rod for controversy, remembering Terrell Pryor was suspended for 5 games for breaking NCAA rules at the time and then entered the supplemental draft. College Football Enquirer Stephen Godfrey joins us now to break it all down. Godfrey, I'll be honest, man, I was pretty stunned. I'm just sitting here getting in the dock, and I'm getting ready to do my prep for the show yesterday, and I'm like, Brendan Sorsby did what? So what was your reaction when you found out that Sorsby decided to go to the supplemental draft?
That college football is the dumbest sport in America, because this entire saga has unfolded. We've learned nothing. No rules have been passed to prevent, to change, to punish. Every side involved in this is now officially dumber for having participated. Okay? If you wanted Brendan Sorsby out of college football because he gambled on his team when he was a backup at Indiana and he was barely playing, that's not why this is happening. Okay? If you were like me and you're like, hey, we should maybe establish a treatment program or build some protocol, or like, I pitched on our College Football Enquirer on the Yahoo Sports Network, a 6-game suspension, or maybe you say, hey, you can play next season or something like that. That's not going to happen. We established nothing. We learned nothing. What happened, guys? The reason why this occurred yesterday, is that our colleague Ross Ellinger reported this. The Big 12 Conference filed a complaint against Sorsby/Texas Tech not because of what happened, not the injunction that was granted by a judge in Texas to allow him to play, but because of threats made publicly by the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton. Okay? Ken Paxton, who's running for a very substantial Senate election right now, came out in support of not really gambling or Sorsby or anything like that. It was just more, he was sort of politically positioning himself to defend Texas Tech. The problem was the language he used, and I'm going to keep this somewhat generic because the legalese here is very deep. Basically, his public statement saying he would seek legal action against those that prevented Sorsby from playing allowed the Big 12 to file a suit on the grounds of the First Amendment, because the First Amendment is normally thought of as freedom of speech, but the First Amendment is also freedom of association. Do you guys know that? I was like buried. Anybody here take constitutional law? Not me. I got kicked out of college.
Amazing. I did not. Yeah.
I sure didn't.
I know it well.
Good. Yeah. Of course. We all do. Yeah. I definitely did. I think I failed media law 3 times. So
it's a toughie.
Freedom to associate, y'all, is the complaint filed. Now, there was 48 hours worth of legal wrangling, and the result, as the news broke last night, I'm gesticulating wildly because of how stupid this is. I'm sorry. I'll try and stay in frame. Was that basically this was the straw legally that sort of broke the back of keeping Brendan Sorsby playing for Texas Tech. That doesn't mean that anything would have changed legally. He still could have played. What happened was that the pro Sorsby camp basically just said, okay, are we going to live with this level of scrutiny and this amount of pending legal problems before, during, and after? The support from the commissioner's office, Brett Yormark of the Big 12, was waning if it was ever really there. The problem was that Texas Tech is also sort of the current crown jewel of the Big 12. They're the defending conference champions. They are the best shot, if any, that the league has at a national title in the near future. So it was a delicate political situation. And finally, the camp just said, hey, is this worth it? I think that Texas Tech, so the mega booster Cody Campbell, the coach Joey McGuire, all the university officials would have supported Sorsby staying and playing. But I think finally Sorsby's camp said, let's exercise our options and talk, and we're just going to go to the supplemental draft. Now, does everyone here know how the supplemental draft works and what you have to have or not have to be in the supplemental draft?
I do, but I will have you explain it to the audience because you are brilliant.
Oh, thanks, Fitz. Wow. We're gonna have good vibes on this June morning. I'm loving it. You got to be ineligible. You got to be in trouble. Okay, it's kind of like going to one of those scary camps they put on like reality shows where they like the 12-year-olds are bad in class and they're like, oh, this is gonna be your life. You're gonna go to prison. Okay, that's kind of like what the NFL supplemental draft is. Just work with that metaphor. Okay, it wasn't great. You cannot be an NCAA eligible football player and enter the NFL supplemental draft. There are other reasons for that we won't unpack today, but basically it's to prevent a flood of NCAA talent from leaving their current positions at schools outside of the normal draft process. That's the shortest way to explain it. So what happened yesterday was that Sorsby withdrew his complaint where the injunction was granted, thus returning him to ineligibility with the NCAA for the gambling, thus allowing him to go to the supplemental draft. Now, the shortest way to explain the supplemental draft is there is a kind of micro version of the NFL draft that occurs. And the difference here is there's a small pool of players and everybody goes around in order and there's a first round and everybody says, all right, does anybody want Brendan Sorsby? You got anybody? It's very much like auctioning off leftovers in a fridge. I'm not kidding. Anybody? Chicken piccata from Tuesday? We good? Okay. And then everybody says no once. And so that's the first round. And then we go around and we go, hey, seriously, chicken piccata. Does anybody want chicken piccata again? And then we go around, okay, your mom made it. It's fine. It's good. Just reheat it. You can like pull like crumbles on it. Okay. Until someone says, yes, I will take the chicken piccata, which in this case is Brendan Sorsby and his damaged career. Whatever round they take him in, however many times you go around, is the pick you then forfeit for the following draft. So if some team takes him in the third round of the supplemental draft, they're burning a third round pick. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Makes
that was
sense.
beautifully explained. I want chicken piccata now, Caroline.
I know, right?
Chicken piccata is delicious.
If you're an early luncher, we're close on the East Coast right now. I mean, like, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's no rules. If you want 10:37 a.m. Eastern time chicken piccata, I'm not going to call the police. We bring up a lot of legalese here, with the Brendan Sorsby situation. So, okay, he's moving on from the NCAA, entering the NFL draft. Is there now law, more legal enforcement that could come for Brendan Sorsby beyond the law of the NCAA?
This is where we get into the court of public opinion and the public positioning in the NFL far more than any rule in the book. Because when Fitz was introing this segment, there's going to be a natural comparison to what happened to Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor, and this just shows you how much college football has changed in a couple decades, was tossed out of the NCAA. He was cast away as a leper because he got a couple tattoos. That's it. That's the whole story. That's all that happened, literally. Tattoo Gate at Ohio State is one of the most amazing stories in hindsight to go back and look at compared to what happens now in college sports. A tattoo parlor in Columbus, Ohio. And let me just say this for the record, as an aside to an aside. Don't get a tattoo in a college town. I have tattoos. I love tattoos. Mine aren't as visible as Fitz's. That's not what I'm saying. I'm pro-tattoo. I'm saying, Fitz, back me up here. You want to work with an established artist that you have a relationship with, right?
Mm-hmm. I only go to one person.
Exactly. I have a person in Nashville. Like, you need to have a person. This needs to be in the Rolodex. Don't get a tattoo after 10 p.m. in a college town. Great tattoo artists aren't in college towns. This is going to be bad. I don't even know what the quality of the tattoo was or if Terrell Pryor still has it on his body. I have tattoos on my back from a college town. I am a father of 3 now. These are tough decisions you live with. Anyway, Terrell Pryor got some bad tattoos, and he got them for free. And then the entire world ended in college sports because the press was filled with a bunch of sanctimonious dorks in the early 2000s who had never done anything cool in their lives. And the NCAA enforcement was basically the same thing. So Terrell Pryor, it was crimes against humanity because he got some free tattoos, even though he was worth about $15 million to Ohio State football. So he goes into the supplemental draft. The NFL at the time was so sanctimonious. This is like before Ray Rice. This is before a litany of other domestic assault things. They were so sanctimonious, they said, we've got you, NCAA. We'll punish him when he goes to the NFL for getting free tattoos. Everything I'm saying right now is true. This is a real thing that happened. If you go as the NFL and decide to do this nonsense again, even though you have your own gambling policy, right? Like Calvin Ridley is a good example of this, right? Calvin Ridley, who is currently a Titan, let's go with that. Was suspended when he was in Atlanta for using a gambling app. He was injured. He bet on some games. I think he bet on some Atlanta games for them. Stupid. And then he was suspended for an entire season. Like, the NFL has a very clear-cut policy because they have a collective bargaining agreement with the players. That's what college doesn't have. I would be shocked, although I'm not saying it won't happen, that the NFL tries to look tough on crime and institute some sort of suspension here. But if I'm in the legal department up there in the upper, I think it's Central Park West where the NFL offices are, I'm saying, guys, let's not touch this. We have something in place with the Players Association. We have rules for this. And the NFL, by the way, they hire a ton of ex-law enforcement from the federal level. If Sorsby were to become a repeat offender and he would still fire on the sports book, they would find out and they would deal with it then. So my strong advice here at the NFL is, let somebody take this guy in the 5th round of the supplemental draft, and then let that be the end of the story. Because there's one last thing we got to talk about here. Brendan Sorsby. Y'all, we've been doing this for how many weeks? We're talking about Brendan Sorsby. We're not talking about Arch Manning. We're not talking about Dante Moore. We're not talking about Fernando Mendoza. We're talking about not a game. Brendan Sorsby is what we're talking about. This is the most energy the media and an industry has spent on a guy who is basically a C-minus option for a college football team. He was overvalued. They spent a lot of money on him at Texas Tech because we're learning how free agency still works. It's the nascent days for college football. Brendan Sorsby, this guy had like a decent season at Cincinnati, and all of a sudden he became the focus of college football. Do you think Brendan Sorsby is going to be leading a team to the NFL playoffs in the next 5 years?
No, I do not.
It's all going to go away.
Okay, so with that being the mindset, it's all going to go away.
Yeah.
We've now seen, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue you. My attorney general can beat up your attorney general. We've seen all of this from the Big 12 and Texas Tech. What's it look like in 3, 6, 9 months? Everybody back in the sandbox together, kumbaya, all is forgiven.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Is there bad blood? Like what happens here? How's this move forward?
Nothing. As I said at the outset, this is the dumbest sport in the world. We're going to, not only Fitz is nothing going to happen, they're going to act like nothing ever happened because Texas Tech and the Big 12 need each other desperately right now. I don't want to sell short like a BYU. Maybe even like I really like Houston's team. God forbid we talk actual football. Like I really like Houston. I really like BYU. I think TCU is going to be better this year. But by and large, also watch out for Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham, I think he's a rising star. By and large, Texas Tech is the ticket that the Big 12 needs to have a national title conversation. Now, they are not great at quarterback, okay? There was a backup who played last year who also got injured, who's going to come back, and he's decent. He played against BYU the first time. But it's not going to be a great situation. Now, if you were a casual college football fan and you watched the New Year's Day playoff games, you would notice that Texas Tech was really good at stopping Oregon's offense, at playing really good DBs, really good pass rush, really good at everything except one position, and that's quarterback. This is why Cody Campbell, the super booster, and everyone in Texas and the various attorneys general, that's how you say it. See, I've been to law school. That's not a real claim. All of those people overextended because they know that Texas Tech needed a better quarterback. It's just funny to me that like the only thing that they could buy in the open market was a Brendan Sorsby. Y'all, we're spending a lot of energy right now fighting over like a 6-year-old certified pre-owned Honda. That's basically what Brendan Sorsby was. Reliable, never exceptional, not sexy.
We did say on this show that if he was the backup quarterback for Memphis, nobody would have cared. It's great work by you in breaking it down in a brilliant way, as you always do. Check out College Football Enquirer on the Yahoo Sports Network. Stephen Godfrey, we appreciate your time, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us. The vacation beard still looks really good, dude. Like really
Somebody
good.
forgot to buy some clippers. It's going to stick around for a while.
I like it. I like it. It's a little.
Here for it.
It's an interesting decision to go with more facial hair in the South during the summer, not less. But I respect it either way, Godfrey. We appreciate your time.
Strategy is not my strong point, Fitzy. It's killing.
I don't want to brag, but
I
this
think
is a
you
full
should-
week. I haven't shaved in a week.
Wow.
I haven't shaved in a week.
All right.
Good for
nice.
you.
Okay.
I think you
Thanks.
should grow it out until Brennan Sorsby is out on the field again.
I'm going to look like Tom Hanks in Castaway.
I was thinking
maybe
ZZ
you
Top,
can bring
but
it.
either way, we'll go Tom Hanks and Castaway. If anybody can rock it, Godfrey can. Follow him on social
Thanks,
media
y'all.
at 38 Godfrey, Stephen Godfrey. We appreciate his time. All right, coming up next, could be, will be Giannis edition.
There was a big bright light shining on the hall, and I saw these two figures, and they were coming. I couldn't see who they were. It was just like dark, shadowy figures. And then we walked past them, and I was just talking to Jeff, and they were talking about before we started signing about how it goes. And then grabbed me from behind. He's like, "Hey," he says, "You're not even gonna say hello to me? You're doing that?" And it was Taker. I said, "I had no idea it was you, but that's so cool. It's so good to see you, man." I gave him a hug, and I said, "Man, I gotta tell you," I said, "I'm super excited for you, man. Are you excited for Dave Meltzer to give you the Booker of the Year award?" And he said, "Shut up," you know.
How do you sort of take your game to the next level in what is now a split backfield?
Yeah, you always need a split backfield running back. We take a lot of hits. We get hit every play, even for you blocking and running. And I say Montgomery, he been doing a great job just going off of just learning my style of play, me learning his style of play, learning new things. You always need a tandem 1-2 punch in the backfield. Sometimes you need a 3-punch. So just getting that in, and we just getting to work right now.
Got to get a touchdown on this possession. Stepping up Garrett. Garrett surveying. He wants it all. End zone Flavors is there,
No
but it's
way.
pulled away by
No
Cook.
way.
Cook pulled it out of the
No
air
way.
and out of the hands of Flavors for a Northern Arizona touchdown.
Way that just happened. In my mind, I'm thinking INT, ball game's over. Marlon Cook says, "Give me this. I need it."
Myles Garrett traded to the Rams. They're trying to live in two worlds where they've got an eye on the future with the quarterback they took this year, but also clearly, maybe more than any other team we've seen, trying to push here for a Super Bowl, which yeah, God, the burden of expectations is going to be tough on that team this year. Like it is, sometimes I kind of roll my eyes at the Super Bowl or bust idea, but this really is like, that's it. Like Super Bowl or bust. Everything else it would be a failure of a season.
I can't give you a consensus on where Giannis is going because some people I talked to convinced that the momentum is still with Miami, but the Boston talk's gotten louder and louder and louder since the end of May. It's been out there, that from Mark Stein, and everybody's trying to figure out where Giannis is going. In fact, if you want to go viral today, all you need to do is put out a fun little graph of some odds and tell us all where Giannis is going. Just make up whatever. You know what? My people are telling me Giannis is going to head to Memphis. You're welcome. Now we're going to go viral. This is what we're going to do until I know, really. Until we actually get a resolution to this is going to be even more obnoxious than Giannis has been for the last decade on the where's Giannis going talk. So, Caroline, we're going to do a little bit of could be, should be, will be. We're going to try and figure out where Giannis should go. So we're going to figure out where he could go, where he should go, and where he will go. Let's start with the should. All right, where should Giannis Antetokounmpo play basketball next season?
Boston. That would just be so fun. I'd be here for it. It's probably not going to happen. But we just got a report from Gary Washburn, who covers the NBA for the Boston Globe. And he reported that the Celtics are not shopping Jaylen Brown, but they're still trying to figure out a way to acquire Giannis. I don't know how that works because if you're the Bucks, you're like, no, I'm not taking anything less than Jaylen Brown. But if there is a world where that can happen, you have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Are you freaking kidding me? Who's saying that team's not winning a championship? Because my pushback to the Celtics acquiring Giannis initially was one, like Giannis is not a three-point shooter, and that's exactly what Joe Mazzulla wants to do. So how does he really fit within the construct of that team? But if you fit him with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, I can see a world where that works, where Giannis is just such a massive presence defensively. So I think Boston would be the most fun. And you could have a fun Boston-New York rivalry going into next season. Chef's kiss.
You did miss a small opportunity there to ask if you were Greek freaking kidding me. I'm just saying. Look, I like
Are you
your
Greeking kidding me?
Are you see that we're workshopping this live on air? I like the concept, although it does lack any depth, because basically that means you and I are going to be on the Celtics roster after that. And also, exactly what are they going to offer in this trade package that makes Milwaukee like a free nothing bundt cake every month for the rest of the year? It's like, congrats, you get a tub of cream cheese icing in return for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like, what are we doing here? So I see this.
Clam chowder,
I appreciate it. Good chowder. Look, I get this, but as my mom used to always say, people in hell want ice water. So I get that, the Celtics don't want to do this without, but like people in hell want ice water. So I don't see it. I'm going to take the full villain turn. I'm going to imagine that this is the one time that we see OKC sort of overreact to what happened against Giannis, knowing that they're about to take on that Spurs team and seeing what a big body can do against that Spurs team and Wemby particularly. I'm going to say he should go to Oklahoma City, which then is going to be the full villain turn for everybody. Now it's the flopper with Giannis coming in ring chasing. We're going to see if they treat Giannis the same way they treated KD when he was ring chasing. Oh, I love this full villain heel turn for OKC that already loves to be hated. I'm trying to figure out who the hero is going to be in the West, because now everybody wants to hate OKC and the flopper, and everybody wants to hate the soft alien and Wemby. So I don't know. I don't know who the good guy ends up, but the chance to get Giannis essentially as the full villain heel turn onto OKC, I need that. And OKC needs him, because there is still no, I know that we've given it a little time to let it all marinate. I still don't see a world where Chet Holmgren's allowed to walk on the court against Victor ever again. Chet just takes that as a load management day every game for the rest of his life because of what happened to him in that last series. So I think Giannis, there we go. Giannis to OKC, I like that. All right, so that if that's where we've got as our shoulds, let's assume Giannis doesn't get his wish to go to Miami. Which long shot option could sneak in and land some Giannis to you?
Oh. So if we want to say Boston, OKC, Miami are probably your big three most likely to land Giannis, And the Knicks are out of contention. Like, we could have talked about that like a month ago. We could have talked about that maybe even still being a possibility going into the NBA Finals had the Knicks lost and looked, embarrassed against Wemby, but I'm taking them out of contention. What's a team that looks like they're currently constructed to win, or they feel like they have the superstar to win, but they're just missing a big piece? I look at a team like Los Angeles. I'm going to just go ahead and assume that Austin Reeves is going to walk in free agency. I could see Giannis upgrading the Lakers defense, which is what they need drastically. And then you have, what he can offer you offensively combined with Luka and LeBron. I would sign up for that. I also think Minnesota is a really fascinating, potential underdog in this scenario. I love the pairing of Giannis and Ant potentially. The way that the Minnesota Timberwolves are currently constructed, they're not winning a championship. They're not getting out of the West. They've shown you that. But I just wonder how that Rudy Gobert Giannis pairing would work, or even if you would hold on to Rudy Gobert if you're going to acquire Giannis if you're Minnesota.
I like the idea of the Lakers, even though it's hard to do. I just like the idea of the Lakers because we all know one thing about the Lakers. If the Lakers aren't going to be good, they're going to be important. They're going to be relevant no matter what. The Lakers are going to try and find a way to make sure that they are in the news no matter what they do. This is a really weird offseason. I have no idea what to expect for this Lakers team. We know that Luka is going to be the building block, but are they going to sign? Are they going to be able to get Austin Reeves to take the contract that they want him to take? What does LeBron want out of all of this? Like, I feel like right now we just have absolutely no idea what the Lakers are going to look like moving forward. So I'm almost imagining the scenario where the Lakers get left at the altar because they can't get the right deal done with Austin Reeves. They decide they don't want to bring LeBron back for a huge contract that he wants. He goes somewhere else, and all of a sudden, boom, Luka and Giannis together continues to make the Lakers relevant. I know it doesn't really work from a basketball standpoint, and this is where you guys are going to hit me with the economics and why they don't work either. But I need none of that right now. I just need my joy.
Make it work.
Giannis to the Lakers. Giannis to the Lakers feels like it's joy-filled. Like, it just feels like it's brand-filled, and it is on brand for the Lakers because it doesn't make them a championship team, but it makes them an important team. And sometimes I'm not sure that they care more about championships than they do about being important. So
does it not make them a championship team?
Nah, Luka and Giannis together still isn't better than OKC. My belief in OKC and San Antonio is staggering. I'm not going to deny that. I have a massive, I put them on a pedestal and everybody else far below.
I think it's totally fair to have an unwavering belief in OKC and San Antonio. But I could be talked into. Now, championship, yes. Whenever you talk about the West, you always have to talk about, okay, how are you getting past Wemby? Okay, how are you getting past OKC? But you can talk me into Luka and Giannis. Luka and Giannis at least challenges OKC far more than the Lakers were able to challenge OKC this past season. Now, I know Luka was out, and that's a different story with Luka and LeBron and Austin Reeves and without Luka, but you can talk me into it.
It's not now I'm suddenly into this. What if it's Austin, Luka, and Giannis all together? So Giannis basically replaces LeBron in this equation, but then you've got people that have to take basically no money. This is where it gets complicated because the money is such a weird part of it. All right, so prediction time. We're going to predict that Giannis Antetokounmpo gets traded while we're on air this week. I think that's the appropriate bold take. But where do you think Giannis Antetokounmpo actually plays basketball next year?
I think Miami. I think we keep hearing so much smoke about Miami. We've heard that Miami is Giannis's preferred destination. I feel like I've heard like 7 different preferred destinations for Giannis, but we keep hearing that that's his preferred destination. I can see it makes sense. Miami wants to make the big swings. Miami, I think, will be willing to do the uncomfortable thing to have an attractive enough trade package to acquire Giannis. But if you're Milwaukee, you want a king's ransom in return. Does Miami have enough to offer that?
I mean, you mean Tyler, I can be your hero, baby, isn't enough for you in return?
No, of course. Oh, no, of course I'm not saying that, Tyler Hero, but no, yeah. Like Tyler Hero and a bunch of draft picks? No, thanks. We're talking about Giannis here.
It is. That is the hardest part. Every single fan base is telling us where Giannis belongs, but nobody's telling me what the Bucks are getting back to make it worthwhile. We'll be back to cover more of it tomorrow at 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for watching Yahoo Sports Daily. Come back again.